It's the Mr. CleanN Show. Sorry about the studio monitor is up a little high. How's it going, brother?
No, it's.
I was going to mic you, but you've got your own mic.
How is it going? It's
Very.
really your interview. You are now Mr. Clean interviewed. Usually you interview other people, but now it's your turn.
Good.
Are you willing to answer different questions about your life?
Yes. Anything and everything.
Can you share a little bit about your childhood?
Yes. Somewhat of a troubled childhood, but maybe I should focus on the positive instead. I think parents are integral to childhood development. So I will start with my mother. Was a wonderful person, a little bit eccentric. Like she had gone through some troubled times in her youth. And so she had and plus she'd gone through the Great Depression, so she had kind of a pack rat syndrome where she would store stuff up.
Wow.
Later, with our long talks, it became evident that I became very understanding because not only the Great Depression element where people kind of like were very conservative and saved stuff, that was one of the small factors, but one of the main factors was that her parents were separated and her father took her across country and drug her from pillar to post and would be with different girlfriends. And she wasn't really allowed to have any toys. At one point, her mother had sent her this little wax doll, and then she didn't pick it up in time, and one of the girlfriends threw it into the fire, one of her only toys.
Wow.
So for her, every little popsicle stick or clipping out of a magazine were her toys. So it became that was one of the factors that led to then later she would store up, like, say we'd have stacks and stacks of styrofoam egg containers that she could then turn into flowers and stuff. So, or piles of magazines, or situations like if we open Christmas presents, we were supposed to carefully wrap them and save the paper. And some of those actually did get used, but other times it became troublesome because then the piles of stuff would build up in the house. At one point, there was like little tunnels that you had to walk through.
Wow,
so that was,
amazing.
could be a bummer, but
You were alone with her, or were
no, my dad was in the picture. He was a good guy too, maybe a little too mellow. I guess his parents had fought a lot. So whenever any issue, it wasn't like he was a weak male. He just, if there was some kind of issue, conflict, he would just let it go the way my mother wanted it. So not because he was necessarily pussy whipped or anything, but because he'd seen his parents fight and just didn't want conflict. And so a World War II veteran, good gentleman, took shrapnel in his back and legs fighting the Nazis.
Any brothers or sisters, or were you all alone?
Three siblings, but all half. One brother that I grew up with, a half brother that was 5 years older than I.
From your mom's side?
From my mom's side, yes. And then the two were adults, much older.
Also from your mom's side?
From my mother's side. So I was my dad's only child.
Did your dad share anything about the experiences in the war?
Yeah, he very rarely. He wasn't one to like be a talkative person, but then when you at some points he did share some stuff.
Isn't working, okay? Now, I mentioned that you can't trust the Democrats. Okay? Take a look at this. The Democrats...
Hey, Crates. That's one of the reasons I don't use the small studio. All right, Amos, here in the studio, Mr. Clean, ready to call in on Will's show.
For example, in the New York Post, Mayor de Blasio. Take a look at that. In the New York Post,
Let's see what he's talking about.
Mayor de Blasio, okay? Mayor of New York City.
New York City? String 'em up, boys.
He talks the talk, but he refuses to walk the walk. Now, Mayor de Blasio, who has been lecturing about pedestrian safety since he became the mayor, strolled across Brooklyn Street against the light on Friday in a blatant jaywalking. And his honor was gabbing on the phone
While he was smoking a blunt.
He slowly made his way across 11th
you can see
Street
it.
and 6th Avenue in Park Slope, and his the NYPD detail faithfully jaywalking with American media misrepresented.
That clip you showed with the mayor of New York City, was he smoking a blunt?
Come on.
That clip you showed with the mayor of New York City, was he smoking a blunt?
No, he had a phone. He had a cell phone. He was talking on a cell phone.
Aha!
It was in the New York Post. Oops, hold up a second. Okay, I'll show it right there. New York Post. He was on the phone. Okay, on the phone. Let me get it up closer here. All right, and he was jaywalking. You see, he has his cell phone. He was talking on the cell phone while jaywalking.
So I came in late. What are some of the other topics you covered on the show?
You can't trust these politicians.
So I came in late, so what are some of the other topics you covered on the show?
Well, I covered, okay, do you know this guy? Now, I talked about how there's more Democrats involved in scandal now, more so since Obama took office. All right, but this guy is former Congressman Melvin J. Reynolds. Okay, now if you got in late, the storyline is he was in Zimbabwe, but the former U.S. Congressman who once was a rising star in the Democratic Party, resigned from his seat after he was convicted of statutory rape, and he has been arrested now in Zimbabwe on suspicion of possession of pornography, as well as an immigration offense. The thing about this, though, is when Reynolds was a former congressman from Illinois, and it's ironic that
what's up with that?
Illinois, and a lot of the scandalous politicians are coming from Illinois. Now, you know.
Yeah, what's up with that?
And this is the latest in several legal problems for Reynolds. Okay, as Reynolds and his successor Jesse Jackson Jr. both resigned in disgrace.
Well, thank you for being on. I'll let some other callers get in.
Whoa.
Have a good one.
Well, thank you for being on. I'll let some other callers get in.
All right.
Have a good one.
Yep. All right. Now, oh, my friends, it is just ridiculous. I have been warning against voting Democrat for years, decades now. All right. You know.
So
when it came up.
you described actually two pictures that are kind of different, and I would like to ask you how to integrate the two and what made the change, because you said that your father lived with your mom, together, and he tried to have a life with her, and it was, you were growing up as the only real smaller child. But on the other hand, you mentioned that during the Great Depression, who was traveling? I mean, that's what I would like to get it straight.
That would have been my grandfather on my mother's side.
I see.
Yeah.
So your mom was traveling with her father, and that explained why her life turned out to be the way it was, while you were actually living with two parents. And and yet she had children from previous relationship. So, wow.
So that story was kind of interesting, is that my grandparents were together, and then my grandmother wasn't really ready to have a child. And then she had my mother, and then actually ran away. No, actually she had a previous daughter. But then with my grandfather had my mother, but then ran away with jazz musicians to New York. This is like in the 20s or whenever it was, in the roaring 20s.
That was your mom.
Your
mom.
My grandmother.
Your grandmother.
And left my mother then with her father. And then he
That's
was like a
amazing.
single dad, and back in the day, now it's more commonplace, but back then it was really unusual. And then he traveled across the country, and thus she experienced this trauma with, at one point, one of the caretakers or girlfriends of my grandfather had put her in like boiling, scalding hot water.
Wow.
And different trauma like that she went through. So some of the eccentricities that my mother had, I took into consideration. You know, I might have become very resentful if it weren't for the fact that I understood all the stuff that she went through. So
this is a kind of, you painted the picture of the beginning, like your childhood and how difficult it was. I would like to say something that I just know you for a short amount of time, but I'm so touched by your positive energy and willingness to serve other people in different ways, and succinct language that, and also from short conversations that we had about your, I would call it religious experiences in different kind of situations. And then I assume you went, because of the childhood or the background, you probably went through some trying times in your life.
Oh yeah, that's
I
just
would
the
like to
beginning.
ask you about it. I don't know if we'll do the interview fully today because it's a long story. But Mr. Clean, you have something to give to the world, and I feel truly honored to interview you and
Why, thank
ask
you.
questions. So the best thing for me is to let you continue from that point, you know, where
We've actually known each other a little bit longer because actually several years ago we took this bioregion class with Tally.
we started.
And
correct.
you gave me a ride, so I knew you because when you
Right.
came there's this Ithaca generator here in Ithaca that's a pretty cool makerspace. Well, I've had a few pieces about that on the show. But he came in there and he goes, I know you from someplace, or you seem familiar, or whatever. And then I finally, oh yeah, you're the guy that, and you actually gave me a ride. That was a pretty cool thing.
That's
wasn't
true.
able to.
It was a short encounter, a prelude to our current relationship, which is so wonderful. May I ask, what year you were born?
Hey, wait, that did it. That did it. Okay, all right. Okay, this is at our live Zoom